Welcome to this month's Salute to Service, and with me today I have Mr. Lou DeLoss. How you doing, sir?
Hi, Ed. How you doing?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You are a United States Air Force veteran, correct?
I am, sir, yes.
And current Medina County resident, right?
Absolutely.
Where do you live
yes.
in Medina County?
Well, we live on Route 3 South, Autumn Run Drive, right off of Route 3 South.
South. So you live in the city of Medina, or is that Montville?
That's actually Montville Township,
There you go.
yes.
So let's go back and talk about some history here. When and why did you join the United States Air Force?
Well, I joined the Air Force in 1964, and so to be honest with you, I was about a half a step ahead of the draft board, was one of these things. As a matter of fact, when I was in basic training at Lackland Air Force Base, I got my draft notice. So it was a little bit late then, of course, but one of the reasons why I joined is I wanted to learn a trade, and and I had always heard that the Air Force, at least once you get out of basic training, it's more like a regular job. Well, I wanted to be a jet mechanic, and that was my #1 strong suit, you know, how you do those little tests before you go in and see what you have the aptitude for, and mine was in the mechanical field. And I was certain and promised that I was going to be a jet mechanic. Well, everybody that I went in for wound up what they call the other side of Lackland, which is where the Air Police School is. So that's how I wound up in the Air Police. And
the needs of the Air Force
overrode
your test scores, right?
They certainly did, but you know, I wouldn't change it, though. Everything worked out well with it.
How many years did you serve in the Air Force?
I served for 4 years in the Air Force.
And you wound up going over to Vietnam, I take it, during that time?
I did. I was there for a year. I was there in 66 and 67, April to April. April of 66, though.
Where'd you go?
October 67. I was at Phan Rang in Tuiwa. What was going on at that time with the Air Force is that we were building bases over there, building the air bases for the F-4Cs and things like that. And when I had arrived at Phan Rang in 1966, we landed on what's called PSP matting. It's this metal matting. We landed in a C-130 there. When I left, all the runways were paved, and I honestly believe they were making plans where they were going to put swimming pools and things like that. But it really did build up fast. About 6 months into the Phan Rang, there was a need to open up an air base at Tuiwa, which is, I should say first that Phan Rang is about 100 miles south of Cam Ranh Bay, and Tuiwa is about 100 miles north of Cam Ranh Bay. So besides running the convoys between all of that, they had decided that at Tuiwa there was going to be another base, and we went up there to help get that base started too.
So where'd you grow up?
Well, I actually grew up, at least until high school, in Meadville, Pennsylvania, which is not very, very far from here. And during my high school years, we had moved to California. And that's where I wound up enlisting, was in California.
So what's a young man think about when obviously you joined the Air Force on your own, you weren't drafted, but then you get those orders for Vietnam. War's going on. Well,
that was a little bit scary, but you know, I was single, and so this is going to be an adventure, definitely. And you know, I decided that well, if that's where I have to go, I mean, you don't really have a choice anyway in the service. If they say that's where you're going, then that's where you're going. So I learned real early in the military to just accept things. I mean, this is the way it was going to be, and more or less, that's a lesson that's run right through life too. Definitely has.
Yeah, makes life easier. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So you did a year over there. You came back. Where'd you serve stateside after that?
Oh, okay, stateside. Well, first, before I was over there, I was at Edwards Air Force Base in California. That was really interesting. That's where a lot of the test facilities are for the Air Force.
I did a couple parachute jumps out there in Cal City.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, then you know that area then, definitely. But, you know, it was odd, too, because you know, at Edwards Air Force Base, the only security provided there was on the flight line, and all of the rest of the security of the buildings and things was actually provided by the individual aircraft companies.
Oh, okay.
Actually, there were no main gates, though, at all on that base. It was just the highways going through California, going through the desert there. And that was interesting. I was able to see the X-15 take off and land. Of course, the X-15 was tucked underneath the wing of a B-52, and
Right.
just what a sight to see that, and when it all
So
came
the
into.
X-15 was just so
That-
everybody knows,
when I
that's
was-
the prototype for the F-15, right? The test plane.
Well, it was a test, but it's more like a rocket. It was,
okay.
It was more of a test, I think, for the Delta wing, and then also for what they use now going into outer space and everything
Okay,
too.
all right.
But though I do have to tell you, the other thing that was going on out there was when the SR-71, if you remember that one, the Blackbird as it was called,
right.
was when that was being tested. It was very hush-hush back then. And as a matter of fact, they only flew it at night. And one of the incidents, one of them unfortunately crashed. And I was ordered to go on the crash site. Me and an entire team went on to guard all of the parts, and that was interesting. We had a convoy that back to Edwards. As a matter of fact, we had a civilian trucks, and we'd only let them get in a certain way to the crash site, and then we would take the trucks and go in, load everything up, cover it up, and then we would convoy back. Now this happened in New Mexico. So it was an overnight trip to get back, and it was in the wintertime. It was very cold at that time, I remember that. But at that time, that was very hush-hush. And of course, nowadays, the SR-71 is more or less obsolete. It's still, I believe, the fastest winged aircraft that
I think they actually brought a couple out of mothballs to fly for the current war over there because of all the, the camera stuff and everything, and the capabilities of that thing.
And now with the satellites, I guess that we can read a license plate from a satellite. So
but I think the satellites take time to move, and I think they're still using the plane.
Yeah, that was interesting, definitely. And then when I got back, I was at Westover Air Force Base in Massachusetts. I wasn't actually on the base. I was at a Strategic Air Command installation that was built into a mountain up in Amherst, Massachusetts. It was an alternate SAC command headquarters, is what that was.
Kind of like the one out in Colorado, or what?
Well, there is one. The main one is in Nebraska at Offutt Air Force Base there, and then there's one in Barksdale, Louisiana, and one in California, and then the one. What that was the ability to wage war anywhere in the United States, or anywhere in the world. I'm sorry, and now. It's, of course, it's obsolete now with all of the technologies that are out there. So they use it. There's 5 colleges that are right in that area, and they use the underground facility there as a storage vault for books for the 5 colleges.
Oh, I'll be darned.
So it's really changed. I had an opportunity a few years ago to bring my daughter back there. We have a lot of friends and relatives still in Massachusetts there, and we were able to get into it. And they were asking me all sorts of questions about what's this for, or what had happened here, and I was able to show them
a little bit of history.
Parts about it that they did not know.
So you grew up in Pennsylvania, you went to California, you wind up in Massachusetts, and here you are in Medina.
Well, there was another stop in between. We lived in St. Louis for a while too, for about 10 years. I had gotten transferred there with my job with my company. But we moved to Medina. It's been about 14 years now, and this was not a company move, but this was a move to the Medina area that we absolutely loved. We were really going to Colorado. We had some homes picked out in Colorado, as a matter of fact, though, from St. Louis. And at that time with my job, I just needed to be near a major airport, a hub airport, where I could get some flights all over the country. And we were up in this area visiting a cousin of mine. And once we saw the Medina area and we saw the square and everything around there, we decided that this is where we want to live. And I had Cleveland as a hub at that time too, for a Continental Airlines. So it worked out well. And the rest, as they say, is history.
And Medina County is a great place to be a veteran, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is. There's more activities here for veterans. It's really a wonderful place to do things at.
Now, one of the reasons Medina County is such a great place to be a veteran is because of a program that you're involved in. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I certainly will. I'm involved with the Hospice We Honor Veterans program. And this is a program that honors veterans and thanks them at the end of life. And the way that it works basically is when a veteran enters hospice, they're asked first if they are a veteran, and if they are, they're asked if they would like a service that we do. It's what we call a pinning service. I work with the Hospice of Medina County, And what we do is we go to the veteran wherever they are. If you're in hospice, you don't necessarily have to be in a hospice facility itself. You can be in your own house, you can be in a nursing home and assisted living, wherever. And if they would like the pinning ceremony, then we'll go to them and we give them a pin, and we also give them a certificate and a thank you. It's a very brief ceremony, but it's very, very meaningful. We also, at that time, we ask if they'd like to talk a little bit about their service.
Right.
And if they do, we let them talk. If many veterans don't really want to talk about it, and if that's the case, then we don't push it. Yeah. But we do thank them that one last time before they pass away. What I have found is it's not only meaningful to the veteran, but it's very, very meaningful to the families as well.
Yeah.
Now, the families, we do try to, if you will, draw a crowd with these things and get as many of the folks around as we can possibly. Now, I know that when I do a lot of the pinnings at the Hospice of Medina County at their inpatient facility out on Route 18 there, that though the nurses stop what they're doing if they can,
they all come,
and they come, they're in the room there too with me. I've had many, many instances. We had one instance over there that the prognosis for this individual was out a few months. So the family decided that they were going to get the rest of the family together, and it was like a mini family reunion.
Right.
It was really great because they had people from all over the country there. And we couldn't use the room that the gentleman was in, so we used the conference room that they had. We must have had 50 people there.
Holy cow.
And it was a matter that I had met the gentleman right out in front first. He was in a wheelchair, but you could talk to him too, though, and understand him. And I said, I may ask you a couple questions about what you had done in the service, because I really wanted to know myself. This was a man that was in the Battle of the Bulge.
Oh, good story there.
So absolutely. And he said, well, I don't know. I've really never really said much over my life about that, so I'm not really sure that I want to do that. Well, when we got into the room and I got the festivities started by having his grandchildren lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And, I think that's, though in that case, all that it took, because from the back of the room, then one of his sons started asking him things, too, about it. And, the next thing I knew, we were there for almost an hour talking about everything that had happened. Yeah. And, for him it was great. For the family it was incredible. And it was really something for me, too, to be able to do that.
I got to tell you, I did one where they had called, and I guess none of you guys were available, and they asked me if I'd come out and do it. And I walked in, and I wound up knowing some of the family. And, talking about emotional. And it is a small, simple ceremony. Right. I'm crying, the family's crying, the veteran we start talking about, he's a Marine Corps veteran. And, I mean, you walk out of there humbled. And the family appreciates what you did. The veteran appreciates, but it is very touching. I mean,
yes, it is.
For everybody involved. And
yeah, they're all a little bit different too. It's like you really never know what's going to happen.
Same,
no, there aren't. There's different situations. There's the one that where the veteran is not able to speak at all,
right.
And they're not at all lucid, and there's ones like that where I'm the only one in the room.
Right.
But I go through the same motions with it and do the entire thing because
it's about the veteran and his service.
Yes, it is, and I firmly believe they can hear me too. I honestly do. And then there's others where everyone's there. It's really great. What I found, though, talking about the families too, especially. It's really, really meaningful to them. I just did one, just last week I did one, and it was at a house locally. And, the family was extremely appreciative, too, with it.
And you guys, everybody involved in this is pretty much volunteers. You're all volunteers.
Yes, we're all volunteers. We're all veterans, of course. That's the way that this works. It's a veteran to veteran. What we found is that another veteran feels more comfortable, I believe, talking to another veteran.
Right.
and that usually gets the ball rolling with it. You know, it's a lot of these World War II veterans especially, we're losing them. We lose 1,800 veterans a day
yeah.
all over the country. And to be able to thank these World War II veterans, they're very, very special to me. These are men and women that went in the service back then in the early 40s, went to the war, got home, got on with their lives, they bought houses, they went to school.
They put the duffel bags in the closet and never
and
turned back. Yeah,
that's it. That's it exactly. So for them to be able to tell their stories at this time for all to hear,
right.
I really, really think that it's just really an incredible program.
Were you looking for volunteers?
We are looking for volunteers.
Okay.
We certainly are. We're looking for veterans that can do some compassionate listening, which is really the main thing. The hardest thing about this job is to not speak when they're speaking. Actually, to be honest with you, there we want them to talk. And you know, I never thought I would be doing this. This was like really the last thing on my mind. When I retired, when I was working, I was on the road a lot, so I really didn't have a lot of time to get involved locally with things. But this just worked out for me. It worked out well. I got involved because of my mother in California was in hospice, and I saw the care and compassion that the hospice workers and the volunteers out there showed. So I decided that would be something that I could do when I retired. And when I was going through the training for this, I learned about the veterans, or the We Honor Veterans program. And that's when I said, well, that's a perfect fit for me. I was a veteran. I can do this. And that's when I had decided that that's one of the things that I wanted to do.
You guys do a great job too, yeah.
We do.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we can use some more help.
Yeah, if anyone's interested in volunteering for the program, call our office and we'll put you in touch with Lou DeLoss, and I'm sure he'll put you to work, right?
I certainly will. There's not too much stuff. There is a little bit of training involved in it, and there's some medical things that involve shots, of course, you know, hepatitis and you know a TB test and things like that. But we've managed to, for the veterans that are only going to do that, what we've done is we've managed to consolidate the training, so we can do it in really less than a day, the training.
Now, I noticed one of your interesting stories here is when you were in Vietnam, you got to guard someone's plane that was kind of a...
I did. William C. Westmoreland, and I'm sure anyone listening that was in Vietnam knows who William C. Westmoreland was, but I just, if you would, sat on the nose wheel for the entire night. Well, this was at Tuiwa, and I can remember in the morning that he came out and saluted, or I, of course, saluted him, and he says, "Good job, Airman." And that's one thing. He says, "Well, I just sat here all night and watched your airplane. You know, nobody stole it. That was a really good thing." So
I remember he came. This is many years later. I think. Oh gosh, 93 or so, and he was the one that pinned the first Gulf War streamer on the 101st Division's flag down there when I was in the 101st, and he's still a hard-looking nosed general guy at that age and back then. So
he was something.
He didn't change very much. So you got out of the service. You only did 4 years in the Air Force. You got out. So tell me a little bit about what's going through your mind when you get out, and how what you learned in the service you carried with you into your civilian life.
Oh, well, I was very happy to get out, actually. You know, I did my job. I didn't really like it, and as many folks don't like it, I guess. That's really the way it is. So I did get out, and while I was, just as I was, of course, getting out, my last base, as I said before, was at Westover Air Force Base, and that's where I met my wife on a blind date, believe it or not. And you know, it's lasted quite a while, so that worked. But what I learned there definitely was discipline. There's no doubt about that. And whatever you do today, you've got to have discipline.
Right.
There's no sort of doubt about it. And that did carry me out through life. I wound up being a catastrophe claim manager for Allstate Insurance Company. I had a team of 115 adjusters all over the country that would handle hailstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, and that's what I wound up doing. I was with them for 36 years. And through all of that, of course, and managing through that, you learn a lot of responsibilities, and you learn that people appreciate what you do.
Right.
It's everybody looks at insurance companies differently, I know, but when you're really in trouble and they're there to help you right after a hurricane or a tornado, it's very, 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 very gratifying as well.
I would imagine the military, some of that transfers over because, I mean, you're going into a situation where you got to have some compassion for people that have just gone through a lot of emotion, and it's not much different than being in the military at some time.
Absolutely is, and all of the training that you had in the military really does transfer over. There isn't any sort of doubt about that.
Now, you were just recently honored with a very special award. You were inducted into the Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame for 2014.
I certainly was.
Tell me a little bit about the ceremony and how you felt about that.
Well, Jerry Lemons and I, Jerry's from Brunswick here, Jerry and I were both, though, bestowed that honor, and it is an honor. It's a very, very humbling honor also. What it is, first, is it's, though it's an organization, the foundation of the Hall of Fame, the Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame, is based on what you've done after the service. And your involvement locally with things. We were inducted together, Jerry and I were, and the ceremony was just absolutely amazing. We were brought to Columbus, of course, and the night prior to that, we had a dinner in our honor with our families attending, and each of us, 20 of us, were just inducted, and we each had an opportunity to get up and talk about what we were doing, and that was really amazing to hear what all these other men and women are doing as well. And the next day was the induction ceremony at the Lincoln Theater in Columbus, and it was just really an amazing day. From the time that we got there in the morning early, I was escorted by 2 Air Force technical sergeants. If it was a Marine, there would be 2 Marines there with that individual.
Oh, wow.
And Navy, the same thing, and Army. It was really amazing the way that it was done. And we were brought up one at a time, given a medal, though, and a plaque. And it was just a great, great day, though, entirely. It's really something that I had never expected to happen, but it did. The way that you're nominated for this, too, is you've got to be nominated by somebody else.
By your peers, more or less, right?
Well, by your peers or by folks that know you and know what it is that you do. And that was the way that I was nominated. We have some dear friends that had nominated me, and they know that I work with hospice. I'm on the MCDAC board and the Juvenile Detention Center Advisory Board. So they knew my involvement with veterans especially. And that was the way that I got nominated for it. But it was an experience, though, of a lifetime. Very, 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 very humbling. I know that there's folks out there that do more than I do, believe me. But this just happened to be recognized, and I just appreciate what all of the veterans do here. And as you said before, Ed, that's very, very true. The veterans of Medina County, there's ways to get involved here, definitely are, and we see these men and women doing this all the time.
And the veterans of those townships do a lot for their communities too. I mean, very involved. Like you're involved with hospice, and there's people that are involved with other different things, and sometimes you don't even know they're veterans, but the veterans bring a lot home to serve their communities.
No, they do. It's really really interesting, and let me just tell you a little story about one of the gentlemen that was being inducted into the Hall of Fame down there. Was a World War II B-17 pilot.
Oh gosh!
And what an interesting gentleman. Matter of fact, he was when he walked around, in his pocket he had a piece of shrapnel that had hit his B-17. Would you believe that all these years he's
still carrying it?
Absolutely did. And when he got up to get his award, all the rest of us stood up and applauded him. I mean, he was just absolutely amazing, though to see him. Now, he was in his early 90s, and just a great gentleman, definitely.
Wow. It's an honor. I just want to say congratulations. I mean, I couldn't think of two better gentlemen. You know, you and Jerry Lemons do a lot. Like you said, a lot of other people do too, but you know, you got to pick somebody, right?
You absolutely do.
So, in finishing up, any last words you got to say out there, maybe to our youth about the military, your time in service, or to anybody?
Well, there is one thing I'd like to say to the Vietnam veterans out there. Now, I know that when we got home that the welcome was not good at all. We understand that. But if you were to get involved in one of the things that I'm doing, the hospice, for instance, and working with other veterans, boy, I'll tell you, that's all the thanks you could ever want. Believe me, it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's the hospice, the involvement that I have is not about me. It's not about the hospice volunteers. It's about the actual patient. But I have to tell you, you get a lot of satisfaction out of this. Believe me, you do.
It is rewarding. Yeah.
It really is. Absolutely is.
Well, I ask everybody this question: if you had it to do all over again, would you do it the same?
Ed,
Other than maybe being a police, you'd want to be that mechanic, right?
Right. I mean, really. But though I have to tell you, I would certainly do it that way again. I learned a lot in the military. A lot of times when you first get out, you don't realize it. But later on in life, these things hit you, and wow, I learned that in the service,
right.
and why don't I do things that way now?
Right.
It's a great lesson. I'm very proud to have been in the Air Force for 4 years, and very happy to do what I'm doing now.
Well, we're glad you decided to call Medina County home, and we're glad to have you here. And thanks for coming on the show, Lou.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks
a
lot. Thanks.
We'll see you.
Thanks.
We'll see you next month on Salute to Service.
I'm super excited to introduce my dad because he's my hero. When I was little, he was doing this really important work, driving ambulances in Iraq. Now he's home, and he's still a hero because he tells the ambulances where to go when there's an emergency. I'm so proud of him. He's awesome. He's my dad.
If a service-connected disability hinders your civilian career, Volk Rehab offers a variety of services to help prepare you for your next mission.
You're watching The Bat.
These are some of the 360,000 Senior Corps volunteers 55 and older driving results through service. The faces of experience. This is Senior Corps. Visit nationalservice.gov. This message brought to you by the Corporation for National and Community Service.